You think vintage sandwiches were just basic bread and bologna? Think again. Depression-era kitchens and working-class homes created some of the most ingenious, budget-friendly sandwiches that fed entire families on pennies. Let's dig into 30 cheap vintage sandwiches perfect for seniors living alone. Tomato sandwiches were summer's greatest gift to budget-conscious households across the rural South during the Depression and post-war years. When backyard gardens overflowed with ripe red tomatoes, families turned that abundance into simple meals costing almost nothing. The preparation required only thick slices of vine-ripened tomato, soft white bread, mayonnaise, and salt and pepper. The bread soaked up the tomatoes' juices, creating a soft texture that contrasted beautifully with the cool, sweet tart fruit. Seniors who grew up in working-class homes remember eating these standing over the kitchen sink, letting the juice drip freely. The sandwich represented self-sufficiency and home gardening when every dollar mattered. Mothers packed them for lunch when garden produce was plentiful, knowing they provided vitamins without spending precious grocery money. Today, heirloom tomato sandwiches appear on fancy restaurant menus, but nothing matches the memory of homegrown tomatoes between cheap white bread. Onion sandwiches carried a sharp, pungent honesty that defined working-class meals when meat was scarce and gardens provided what little families had. A thick slice of raw white onion was placed between bread spread with butter or lard, seasoned only with salt. The flavor was bold, almost aggressive, clearing sinuses and filling bellies with something substantial enough to call dinner. During the Depression, raw onions cost pennies and lasted weeks in cool cellars, making them reliable sustenance when nothing else was available. The sandwich required no cooking and could be assembled in seconds by tired workers returning home. Children learned to eat them without complaint because complaining meant going hungry. The sharpness seemed to wake up taste buds dulled by bland, poverty-era meals. Seniors today remember the sandwich with mixed emotions, recalling both the hardship it represented and the strange satisfaction it provided. What seemed like desperation food actually delivered vitamins and fullness when families had almost nothing. Mustard sandwiches represented rock-bottom survival food during the hardest years of American poverty, yet they carried surprising dignity in their simplicity. 2 slices of bread spread generously with bright yellow mustard created a meal costing virtually nothing but still feeling intentional. The tangy, vinegary bite provided flavor intensity that plain bread could never deliver alone. Children walked to school with these in their lunch pails during the Depression, eating them without shame because everyone understood hard times. The mustard's sharpness fooled the brain into thinking something more substantial had been consumed. Families kept large jars of cheap yellow mustard in pantries, knowing it could stretch meals when nothing remained. The sandwich required no refrigeration and could be made by the youngest child. Seniors who survived those lean years remember mustard sandwiches with quiet pride, knowing they represented resilience and determination to eat something rather than nothing. Banana and mayonnaise sandwiches sound strange to modern ears, but were beloved comfort food throughout the South during the mid-20th century. The combination emerged when bananas became affordable, and Southern cooks discovered that mayonnaise's creamy richness paired surprisingly well with the fruit's sweetness. Ripe bananas were sliced onto soft white bread slathered with mayo, sometimes with a sprinkle of salt. The texture was creamy and soft, almost like eating banana pudding in sandwich form. Children loved these because they tasted like a treat despite costing almost nothing. The sandwich provided quick energy from natural sugars, while the mayo added satisfying richness. Families packed them for school lunches, knowing they stayed fresh longer than many alternatives. Duke's mayonnaise was the preferred brand in Southern households. Today, this sandwich divides people into believers and skeptics, but seniors who grew up eating them remember the simple pleasure of something special from humble ingredients. Sardine sandwiches delivered complete protein and essential fats to families who couldn't afford fresh fish or expensive meats during lean times. Small tins of sardines packed in oil sat on pantry shelves, ready to become instant meals whenever hunger called. The tiny fish were mashed onto bread with a fork, their salty, oily richness spreading easily. Some families added sliced onion or a squeeze of lemon to cut through the fishiness. The flavor was bold and unmistakably oceanic, filling kitchens with a distinctive aroma. A single tin could feed 2 people when stretched with plenty of bread, making sardines remarkably economical. The calcium from soft, edible bones provided nutrition that growing children desperately needed. Sardine sandwiches appeared in factory lunch pails and school bags throughout working-class America. Seniors remember their fathers eating these after long shifts. The tin opened with a key that peeled back the lid. The sandwich carried honest nourishment, tasting better than its humble reputation suggested. Potted meat sandwiches turned tiny cans of processed meat spread into filling meals that sustained working families across America. The small, affordable cans contained finely ground meat mixed with seasonings and gelatin, creating a spreadable paste covering bread easily. The flavor was salty and vaguely meaty, with smooth texture that children found less intimidating than tougher cuts. Spread thick between slices of soft white bread, sometimes with mustard or pickle slices, potted meat made a complete sandwich for pennies. The cans required no refrigeration until opened, making them perfect pantry staples for homes without reliable icebox access. Families bought them by the case when money allowed, stockpiling affordable protein against uncertain times. The sandwiches appeared at picnics, in lunchboxes, and on dinner tables when paychecks ran thin. Children grew up eating them without realizing how clever their mothers were at stretching resources. Today, potted meat still exists in stores, a quiet reminder of survival cooking. Vienna sausage sandwiches transformed small canned sausages into quick meals that children and adults devoured during the mid-20th century. The tiny, pale sausages came packed in broth, soft enough to eat cold from the can or sliced lengthwise onto bread. Their mild, slightly smoky flavor appealed to picky eaters, while providing protein costing less than fresh meat. Mothers appreciated how cans stored indefinitely in pantries, ready for emergencies or unexpected mouths to feed. The sausages were mashed with a fork or sliced thin, then layered on bread with mustard or mayonnaise. Some families added onions or pickles for crunch. The sandwich assembled in minutes without cooking, perfect for hot summer days when lighting the stove meant heating the entire house. Children often asked for these specifically, finding the small sausages more appealing than mysterious lunch meats. Seniors remember raiding pantries for Vienna sausage cans as after-school snacks. The cans represented affordable, satisfying, protein-rich meals. Crackling bread sandwiches combined 2 Southern traditions into one gloriously rich meal that wasted nothing from the family hog. Cracklings, the crispy bits left after rendering pork fat into lard, were stirred into cornbread batter before baking, creating bread studded with salty, crunchy pork pieces. Sliced thick and still warm, the crackling bread was eaten between pieces of regular bread or simply split and buttered. The flavor was intensely porky, salty, and satisfying in ways that plain cornbread could never match. This sandwich represented the waste-nothing philosophy defining rural Southern cooking during hard times. Every scrap of the pig found purpose, including the crispy remnants of rendering. Families made crackling bread during hog killing season, when lard production created pounds of cracklings. The bread kept well for days, becoming sandwich material for lunch pails and quick suppers. Seniors from rural areas remember the smoky aroma filling kitchens and the satisfying crunch of crackling studded bread. Bacon dripping sandwiches turned saved cooking fat into meals delivering rich, smoky satisfaction without wasting precious bacon. Families saved bacon grease in jars beside the stove, the accumulated fat representing flavor wealth too valuable to discard. The drippings were spread onto bread while still warm, absorbing into the soft surface and creating butter-like richness. Salt was usually unnecessary since the bacon fat carried plenty, though some added pepper for warmth. The flavor was unmistakably bacon without requiring actual bacon, stretching the essence of expensive cured pork across many meals. During the Depression and wartime rationing, this sandwich appeared in households where meat was rationed or unaffordable. Children ate these without complaint because the smoky richness satisfied cravings that plain bread never could. The fat provided calories desperately needed by growing bodies and working adults. Seniors remember their mothers guarding the bacon grease jar, knowing those drippings transformed ordinary bread. Syrup sandwiches carried sweetness and energy to children who needed both during years when sugar was rationed and treats were rare. Sorghum, molasses, or cane syrup was drizzled generously over soft bread, sometimes topped with another slice, sometimes eaten open-faced. The dark, sticky sweetness spread across the bread like liquid candy, providing quick fuel for active children and tired workers alike. The flavor was deep and complex, far more interesting than plain sugar, with mineral notes and earthy undertones. Families kept jars of syrup in pantries throughout the South, using it as affordable sweetener when refined sugar cost too much. The sandwich required no cooking and assembled in seconds when hunger struck between meals. Children begged for these as treats, not realizing they were also survival food born from necessity. The syrup's thickness made the sandwich filling despite containing little actual nutrition beyond carbohydrates. Seniors remember the sticky fingers and satisfied smiles following every syrup sandwich. Sugar sandwiches were childhood treats disguised as meals during years when candy was unaffordable and sweetness came from whatever the pantry offered. Soft, white bread was spread with butter, then sprinkled generously with white sugar that sparkled like tiny crystals against the yellow fat. The combination created a simple pleasure that satisfied sweet cravings without requiring expensive ingredients. Children ate these after school, their eyes lighting up at something that felt like dessert but cost almost nothing. The butter melted slightly from the bread's warmth, creating pockets where sugar dissolved into sweet slurry. Parents made these knowing a little sweetness could brighten difficult days when money was tight. The sandwich required no cooking and could be assembled by the smallest hands in the household. Seniors remember begging for these as rewards for chores, not realizing their parents were stretching resources creatively. What seemed like indulgence was actually survival cooking dressed up as celebration. Lard sandwiches represented the absolute bottom of Depression-era survival food, yet they kept families alive when nothing else remained in the pantry. Pure rendered pork fat was spread onto bread like butter, sprinkled with salt, and eaten without complaint by hungry mouths. The texture was smooth and greasy, coating the tongue with richness that plain bread could never provide. The flavor was subtle, vaguely porky, with satisfaction that came from the fat's density and calories. During the hardest years, when even margarine was unaffordable, lard became the spread of necessity. Families rendered their own from pork scraps or bought it cheaply from butchers who had plenty. The sandwich provided essential calories that kept bodies functioning through hard labor and cold winters. Children ate them without knowing they were eating poverty food because their parents served them with dignity. Seniors who survived those years remember lard sandwiches with complicated emotions, grateful for the nourishment, yet haunted by the desperation. Peanut butter and pickle sandwiches emerged from Depression-era creativity and stuck around because they actually tasted surprisingly good. Creamy peanut butter was spread thick on one slice, while dill pickle slices covered the other, creating a combination that sounds wrong but works. The salty, tangy pickles cut through the peanut butter's richness, creating flavor contrast that kept taste buds interested. Children often loved these despite their strangeness, and mothers appreciated the protein combined with preserved vegetables. The pickles provided crunch that peanut butter alone couldn't offer, plus the vinegar balanced the fatty richness. Families made these when lunch meat was unavailable, but the pickle jar and peanut butter sat waiting in the pantry. The cost was negligible since both ingredients lasted weeks without refrigeration. Seniors today either remember loving these or being confused by the combination. What seemed like desperation food actually delivered balanced nutrition and genuinely interesting flavors. Fried Bologna sandwiches elevated cheap lunch meat into something approaching luxury through the simple magic of a hot skillet. Thick slices of Bologna were scored around the edges to prevent curling, then fried in a cast-iron pan until the exterior caramelized and the edges crisped. The rendered fat created richness, while the heat transformed the meat's texture from rubbery to almost bacon-like. Placed between soft white bread with mustard or mayonnaise, the hot Bologna created a sandwich that satisfied in ways cold lunch meat never could. Children watched eagerly as the Bologna sizzled and popped, knowing something special was about to be served. The smell filled kitchens with a distinctive aroma that announced dinner to the whole house. Bologna cost far less than other meats, making it a working-class staple that stretched paychecks further. Seniors remember these as comfort food that made ordinary days feel celebratory. The simple act of frying transformed poverty food into genuine pleasure. Cheese Dream sandwiches were the elegant cousin of simple grilled cheese, topped with bacon or tomato, and broiled until bubbly and golden. Open-faced and sophisticated, they appeared in women's magazines during the 1940s and 1950s as budget-friendly luncheon fare. A slice of bread was topped with cheese, sometimes with bacon strips underneath, then placed under the broiler until the cheese melted and developed brown spots. The result was more refined than standard grilled cheese, feeling almost like restaurant food despite humble ingredients. Housewives served these at bridge clubs and ladies' luncheons, proving that economy didn't mean sacrificing presentation. Children considered them special treats, fascinated by the bubbling cheese under the broiler's heat. The open-faced design meant one slice of bread instead of two, stretching resources further. Seniors remember Cheese Dreams as the fancy version of everyday sandwiches, proof that creativity could elevate simple ingredients into something extraordinary. Egg and olive sandwiches combined two affordable ingredients into surprisingly sophisticated fare that graced ladies' luncheons and church gatherings. Hard-boiled eggs were chopped fine and mixed with sliced green olives, mayonnaise, and mustard. The combination created filling with complex flavors, the eggs providing richness while olives added briny punch. Spread between slices of soft white bread, sometimes with crusts removed for elegance, these sandwiches appeared at tea parties throughout mid-century America. The olives, bought cheaply in jars, stretched affordable eggs into something that tasted elaborate. Women took pride in their egg and olive mixture, adjusting proportions to family preference. Children sometimes found the olives strange, but adults appreciated the Mediterranean notes brightening ordinary egg salad. The sandwich represented economy dressed up for company, proving hospitality didn't require expensive ingredients. Seniors remember these as party food, the kind served when impressing guests mattered. Liverwurst sandwiches delivered iron-rich nutrition in a spreadable form that European immigrants introduced to American working-class tables. The soft, pinkish-gray meat spread easily onto bread, its flavor deeply savory with unmistakable liver notes that people either loved or couldn't tolerate. Topped with mustard, sliced onion, or pickles, Liverwurst provided complete protein at prices far below fresh meat. German and Eastern European families brought Liverwurst traditions to America, where it became a deli staple and lunchbox regular. The spread kept well under refrigeration, and a little went far, making it economical for large families. Children grew up eating Liverwurst without realizing they were consuming organ meat, finding the mild flavor approachable. Factory workers carried these sandwiches knowing they'd provide sustained energy through long shifts. Seniors remember Liverwurst as everyday food, nothing fancy but reliably filling. The sandwich proved that immigrant food traditions enriched American tables. Salmon salad sandwiches turned affordable canned fish into creamy, protein-rich meals that families relied on when fresh meat was scarce or expensive. Canned salmon was drained, bones removed or mashed in, then mixed with mayonnaise, celery, onion, and seasonings much like tuna salad. The flavor was richer and more distinctive than tuna, with a slightly fishy taste that announced itself boldly. Spread on bread with lettuce or eaten plain, salmon salad provided complete protein and essential omega fatty acids that growing bodies needed. The cans stored indefinitely in pantries, ready whenever unexpected hunger called or paychecks ran short. Families bought canned salmon by the case when prices dropped, stockpiling affordable protein for uncertain times. The soft bones, when mashed into the salad, provided calcium that children especially needed. Seniors remember salmon salad as church potluck standard and weeknight supper staple. The sandwich represented reliable nutrition that required no refrigeration until the can was opened. Brown sugar sandwiches offered deeper, more complex sweetness than their white sugar cousins, with molasses notes that made them feel almost sophisticated. Soft bread was spread with butter, then covered with brown sugar that didn't quite dissolve, creating pockets of crystalline crunch. The flavor was richer than plain sugar sandwiches, with caramel undertones that satisfied cravings more completely. Children preferred these when given the choice, finding the brown sugar's complexity more interesting. The butter melted slightly, mixing with sugar to create something approaching butterscotch in places. Families made these as treats when the sugar bowl was full and children needed quick energy or comfort. The sandwich assembled in seconds, requiring no cooking and minimal cleanup. Brown sugar lasted longer than white in humid climates, making it practical for southern pantries. Seniors remember these as special versions of everyday sugar sandwiches, the brown sugar signaling something slightly more indulgent. Apple butter sandwiches spread autumn's concentrated sweetness across soft bread, bringing preserved orchard flavor to tables year-round. Apple butter, cooked for hours until dark and thick, carried intense apple flavor with warm spices like cinnamon and allspice. The spread was smooth enough to glide across bread without tearing, its deep brown color promising rich flavor in every bite. Families made apple butter in massive batches during harvest season, filling jars that would last through winter and into spring. The preparation required patience as apples slowly reduced into thick paste, filling kitchens with fragrant steam. Children loved the sweetness without realizing they were eating preserved fruit that provided vitamins when fresh produce was unavailable. The spread cost almost nothing when apples were plentiful, making it economical to prepare in abundance. Seniors remember apple butter sandwiches as packed lunches and after-school snacks, the taste of family orchards in portable form. Pimento cheese sandwiches spread Southern tradition between slices of soft white bread, creating comfort food that graced both humble tables and elegant gatherings. Sharp cheddar cheese was shredded fine and mixed with chopped pimento peppers, mayonnaise, and sometimes cayenne or Worcestershire sauce. The result was a creamy, slightly tangy spread with gentle sweetness from the roasted peppers. Every Southern household had its own recipe, guarded and passed down through generations of women who adjusted proportions to family taste. The spread was economical because a little cheese went far when mixed with mayo and peppers. Ladies served pimento cheese sandwiches at bridge clubs, church functions, and afternoon teas, proving budget-conscious cooking could still impress. Children ate them without crusts as after-school snacks. Factory workers packed them knowing they'd stay fresh through long shifts. Seniors remember pimento cheese as the taste of home, a flavor so distinctly Southern it carried regional identity in every bite. Chopped ham sandwiches turned affordable canned meat into lunchbox staples that fed working families across mid-century America. The ham came pre-ground in cans or was chopped fine from deli ends and mixed with mayonnaise, mustard, pickle relish, and sometimes hard-boiled egg. The resulting spread was smooth enough for easy spreading but chunky enough to feel substantial. The flavor was salty and smoky with tangy notes from the relish cutting through the richness. Mothers made batches on Sunday nights, filling containers that would provide quick sandwich material throughout the busy week. The spread cost far less than sliced deli ham while providing similar protein. Children found the texture more appealing than mysterious lunch meats with visible fat. Factory workers and office clerks carried these sandwiches, knowing they'd deliver reliable fuel through long afternoons. Seniors remember chopped ham as everyday food, the kind of practical cooking that kept families fed without fuss. Butter and honey sandwiches combined two ancient foods into simple perfection that satisfied both hunger and the human craving for sweetness. Soft bread was spread generously with butter, then drizzled with golden honey that pooled in the butter's soft surface. The combination created something greater than either ingredient alone, the butter's richness mellowing the honey's intensity, while the honey's sweetness enhanced the butter's subtle flavor. Children loved these as treats that felt special despite requiring only pantry staples. The sandwich provided quick energy from the honey's natural sugars and sustained calories from the butter's fat. Families kept honey in cupboards throughout rural America, often from local beekeepers or their own backyard hives. The cost was minimal when both ingredients came from the land rather than the store. Seniors remember butter and honey sandwiches as breakfast, as snacks, as comfort during difficult days. The combination tasted like childhood itself, simple and sweet and completely satisfying. Lettuce sandwiches proved that sometimes the simplest combinations provided the most refreshing satisfaction during hot summer months. Crisp iceberg lettuce was layered thick between slices of soft white bread spread with mayonnaise, seasoned only with salt and pepper. The crunch was remarkable, cool and fresh against the soft bread and creamy mayo. The flavor was subtle but clean, a relief from heavy winter foods when summer heat made rich meals unbearable. Gardens provided lettuce abundantly during growing season, making this sandwich essentially free for families who grew their own. The preparation took seconds, requiring no cooking during months when kitchen heat was unwelcome. Children ate these on summer afternoons, the cool crunch refreshing after hours of outdoor play. Adults appreciated the lightness when heavier sandwiches felt oppressive. Seniors remember lettuce sandwiches as seasonal treats, proof that abundance from the garden could be enjoyed simply. The sandwich celebrated summer's bounty without complication. Mock chicken salad sandwiches fooled taste buds during years when real chicken was too expensive for everyday meals. Canned tuna or cooked white beans were mashed and seasoned with poultry seasoning, celery, mayonnaise, and onion to mimic chicken salad's flavor. The result was surprisingly convincing, the seasoning creating familiar taste while the base provided protein at a fraction of chicken's cost. Housewives learned this trick during the Depression and wartime rationing, passing the technique to daughters who continued using it when budgets were tight. The sandwich filled lunchboxes and appeared at church potlucks where no one questioned whether it contained real chicken. Children ate it happily, never knowing they weren't eating actual poultry. The beans or tuna provided complete protein while costing pennies compared to chicken. Seniors remember mock chicken salad as clever cooking, the kind of resourcefulness that kept families fed with dignity. Jelly sandwiches were childhood's simplest pleasure, requiring nothing more than bread and preserved fruit spread. Grape, strawberry, or whatever the pantry held was spread generously across soft white bread. The texture was smooth and slightly sticky, the flavor intensely fruity. Children could make these themselves, a first cooking lesson, building kitchen confidence. The cost was minimal since jelly lasted weeks and bread was cheap. Mothers packed these knowing children would actually eat them. The sweetness provided quick energy for active kids. Families made their own jelly during fruit season, preserving summer's bounty. Seniors remember jelly sandwiches as after-school constants, coming home to something sweet. Cream cheese and jelly sandwiches elevated the simple jelly sandwich into something richer. Soft cream cheese was spread on one slice while jelly covered the other, creating complementary flavors. The cream cheese added protein that plain jelly lacked, making this version more filling. The tangy cheese balanced the jelly's sweetness perfectly. Children considered these special treats compared to regular jelly sandwiches. The combination stayed fresh longer than alternatives, making it practical for lunches. Women served these at ladies' luncheons, acceptable for company while remaining budget-friendly. Seniors remember these as the fancy version of everyday jelly sandwiches. Cucumber sandwiches carried English Tea Party elegance into American homes, proving sophistication required only fresh vegetables. Thin cucumber slices were layered on buttered white bread, sometimes with cream cheese, crusts removed. The flavor was cool and refreshing, the cucumber's subtle taste enhanced by butter's richness. These appeared at ladies' luncheons and bridal showers where presentation mattered. The cost was negligible when cucumbers came from summer gardens. Children found them strange but learned to appreciate the cool freshness. The sandwich required careful assembly but no cooking. Seniors remember cucumber sandwiches as special occasion food. Ketchup sandwiches represented rock-bottom survival food, yet children often requested them as comfort food. Soft white bread was spread with ketchup, nothing else, creating a sandwich that was tangy and sweet. The condiment provided flavor intensity, masking the meal's emptiness. During the hardest Depression years, ketchup sandwiches kept hunger at bay. Children ate them because the sweet, tangy flavor appealed to young palates. Parents served them knowing something was better than nothing. The sandwich required no refrigeration, no cooking. Seniors remember these with complicated feelings, grateful yet aware of what such meals signified. bread and butter sandwiches, stripped, eating down to essential elements, yet this simplicity created its own satisfaction. Fresh bread, ideally still warm, was spread with good butter and eaten plain. The combination was ancient and universal, how humans had eaten for centuries. The butter melted slightly into warm bread, creating richness that seemed almost luxurious. Children ate these as snacks, as meals, as comfort when nothing else appealed. The cost was minimal, the preparation instantaneous, the satisfaction genuine. Seniors remember bread and butter sandwiches as the foundation of all other sandwiches. Sliced bananas with mayo on white bread. This banana and mayonnaise sandwich is a bit of a wild card for sure, but keep an open mind because the South definitely does, which is where this interesting creation finds its origins. Typically, a lot of comfort food comes out of the southern USA. As you may have guessed, preparing this is as simple as taking candy from a toddler. Now I know what you're thinking. Bananas and mayo sounds worse than water and oil. However, there's a reason it comes into comfort food. All you need is a sliced banana, 2 slices of fresh bread, and a good spread of mayo. Maybe not the best you'll ever have, but what's the downside? Give this forgotten experiment a try and see if it's up your alley. Sardine and mustard sandwiches were the bold, fearless meals grandparents made when they wanted flavor, nutrition, and thrift. All at once, sardines came in tins that waited on the pantry shelf like hidden treasures. Salty and tender with enough natural oil to feel restaurant-rich, grandparents mixed them with mustard, sometimes adding onions or a splash of vinegar, and spread the mixture with the confidence of someone making a seafood cafe special. And honestly, it tasted like it belonged there. Sardines had that deep, briny flavor that made the sandwich feel worldly and far more expensive than it was. These meals filled you up and stayed in your memory long after, teaching you something about trying foods that looked humble but tasted big. Grandparents valued strong flavors, meals that woke you up and proved that good food was about skill, not money. Sardine and mustard sandwiches were a small act of boldness and a thrifty masterpiece. Bacon grease toast was pure mountain efficiency, transforming yesterday's cooking fat into today's breakfast in under 3 minutes. After frying bacon, families saved the rendered grease in tin cans kept near the stove, ready for any cooking need. A thick slice of homemade bread would be placed directly in the warm skillet, absorbing the smoky bacon fat until the bottom turned golden and crispy. Flipped once, the bread emerged transformed, carrying the essence of bacon without requiring any actual meat. Some families sprinkled salt or sugar on top, depending on preference. Others ate it plain, letting the rich pork flavor speak for itself. This wasn't poverty food in the shameful sense, but rather brilliant resourcefulness that wasted nothing. The bread's texture became extraordinary, crispy on the outside, yet soft within, infused with smoky richness. Bacon grease toast fed families during lean times and flush times alike, proving great breakfasts needed nothing more than bread and leftover fat. A basic 2-ingredient combo like meat spreads and cheese would continue making their mark with dishes like salami and cream cheese sandwiches. Salami itself was something that Italian-American communities heavily popularized in America around the early 1900s. Restaurants would take the trend and turn it into a surefire facet of American cooking in the 70s with easy and accessible ideas like salami and cream cheese sandwiches. If it works in restaurants, then the next step to making it a long-lasting memory is to make it simple enough for people to eat at home. Cream cheese, some salami, and white bread understood the assignment perfectly, and despite fading away later on, were a beloved sandwich. If you had any Italian family or were in a primarily European neighborhood, you could definitely expect to catch a whiff of these around the block. Maybe cheeses used to be stronger then? Either way, we would love to try this sandwich from the 1970s. The Pimento cheese sandwich is a southern classic made with a spread of grated cheese, mayonnaise, and pimientos, typically served on white bread. This sandwich was once a staple at luncheons and picnics, but has become less common in recent times. The peak its popularity was definitely during the 20th century, mostly as a homemade snack. The conventional prep would be pimiento peppers and cheese, soft or grilled, usually cream, spread across 2 loaves of bread. It declined as a go-to snack after WW2, but the South remembers favorably the delicious pimento sandwiches their grandmothers would whip up. Does it get any nostalgia going for you? This sandwich definitely rings some bells in the minds of Southerners, though it's hard to find places offering to create this now-forgotten sandwich. Butter and sugar sandwiches were the quiet little treat that felt like a celebration even when there was nothing special going on. Grandparents would take soft white bread, spread a generous layer of butter across it, and sprinkle just enough sugar to make it sparkle. Toast it lightly, and suddenly you had something that tasted like pastry from a bakery window. The butter melted into every corner of the bread, and the sugar turned into this delicate crunch that made the whole thing feel indulgent, despite being made from the simplest ingredients in the kitchen. It was sweet, without trying too hard, comforting without being heavy, and somehow tasted like more than the sum of its parts. When grandparents handed it to you warm, you felt like you were being given a secret treasure, one of those homemade miracles that adults forget about but kids remember forever. It was cheap, but it never tasted cheap. The flavor made you feel like you were eating dessert, even though it was technically just bread, butter, and sugar. Maybe that is why it stuck with so many people. It was the taste of being young, of having someone take the time to make you something small but meaningful. Butter and sugar sandwiches were proof that the simplest foods could make the biggest memories, and that a tiny bit of sweetness could carry you a long way. Streak a lean biscuit was Appalachian breakfast perfection, featuring that thin-cut salt-cured pork that sat somewhere between bacon and fatback. The meat was sliced from the pig's belly, carrying streaks of lean meat through the fat that gave it both name and character. Fried quickly in a hot skillet, streak a lean rendered its fat while the lean portions crisped and curled at the edges. Tucked into a split biscuit with maybe a smear of butter or apple butter, this sandwich delivered salty, smoky satisfaction that powered hours of farm labor. The meat cost less than proper bacon but carried more flavor than plain fatback. Families cured their own streak o' lean in smokehouses each fall, ensuring a supply of breakfast meat that lasted through winter and into spring. This sandwich represented the kind of self-sufficiency that defined mountain life, where families raised and preserved their own food. Equally offensive to most conservative taste palates were pineapple and cheese sandwiches. As of 2024, it is a well-established fact that the West and pineapples have had a very troubled relationship. Pineapples try their best for America, and America acts like an alcoholic husband that cannot notice his wife even on their anniversary. Back in the 70s, this was still a new culinary ground people were treading, just like ham and banana sandwiches. What they found was that it did not have the potential to go very mainstream, but it could grow itself a strong, loyal, and niche following. Most fans of this sandwich were in Hawaii, but in surrounding states, the trend took off moderately successfully. People loved the overly sweet and oddly comforting sensation of the sandwich, and we can see why. Pineapple and cheese sandwiches sound oddly delicious if you really think about it. Cooked chicken livers mixed with onions and spices came together to create the chicken liver sandwich. Now, out of all the ones on the list, this one has probably stood the test of time the most rigidly. You'll still find it in the odd bistro or cafe here and there. Preparing it is a bit of work, but for those who want to expand their sandwich arsenal, this is a worthy addition. You'll need celery, red onions, curry powder, salt and pepper, and lettuce of your choice. Once you've mixed your meat with your vegetables and spices, it's time to get cooking in a 350-degree skillet and mix well. Once it's all ready, assemble your sandwich and see just why this was so popular around the 1940-1960s. Peanut butter and banana sandwiches were the closest thing to dessert you could get without anyone calling it dessert. Grandparents mashed the banana until it blended into the peanut butter, making this sweet, velvety spread that could brighten even the plainest slice of bread. It was cheap, filling, and tasted like something that should have come from a bakery instead of a quiet kitchen. Sometimes they warmed the banana or toasted the bread just enough to make everything melt together in that gooey, comforting way that stayed with you. It was a sandwich that tasted like effort, even though it cost almost nothing. Grandparents knew how to turn 3 ingredients into something that felt special, and this sandwich was proof. It reminded you of slow afternoons and simple comforts that feel distant now. Maybe that is why people still crave it today. Grandparents did not measure or follow rules. They just mashed, stirred, and spread until it felt right. And somehow, it always was. Peanut butter and banana sandwiches were a treat disguised as lunch, a bit of love disguised as food. Fried egg and fatback biscuit was the working man's fuel that powered countless mornings across Appalachia and the rural South. Fatback, that thick slab of pure pork fat from the pig's back, would be sliced thin and fried in a cast-iron skillet until the edges turned crispy and golden while rendering out precious grease. Into that same bubbling fat went a fresh egg, the whites crisping at the edges while the yolk stayed soft and runny. The whole assembly was placed between halves of a hot buttermilk biscuit, the egg yolk breaking and mixing with the salty pork fat to create a natural sauce that soaked into the bread. This sandwich cost almost nothing to make, yet delivered protein, fat, and carbohydrates in perfect balance. Families kept fatback in the smokehouse or root cellar, ready for any morning when time was short but hunger was real. The combination of crispy pork, creamy egg, and tender biscuit created something genuinely satisfying that no modern breakfast sandwich has managed to replicate. Ham and banana sandwiches are less digestible both literally and figuratively than most of the list, but they actually worked quite well. The trick was in how you sliced them, because if the banana slices were fat and thick while the ham was thin, you would have a really overly sweet sandwich. Meanwhile, if you did the opposite, then you would have a mushy sandwich that did not have any real flavor. If you did get the proportions right, and most people did after their first few tries, then you had a 70s DIY delicacy with simple ingredients. It made sense why most people did not know how to make a good one, because it was not common. People who lived in other decades hated fruit and meat mixes of savory dishes, but they had a lot more room to make an impression with the crowd in the 70s. Maybe people felt very tropical for a decade? The sandwich would be quite an interesting addition in menus today. Slices of cold meatloaf on bread created the cold meatloaf sandwich. Sounds simple enough, right? Nailing the contrast between the different flavors at work here is actually what packs this sandwich's flavorful punch. In your preparation, take care to preserve the moisture as much as possible. Also, for the love of God, please use loaf pans. They keep your loaf so much more stable. Now you can also throw in some pork, an egg, meat of your choice, garlic, and cook it in butter to really get a meal going. Leftover meatloaf folded into a sandwich has been a USA staple probably since the days of the Founding Fathers. But don't close your mind to all you can really do with it. Fried Bologna sandwiches were the kind of magic only grandparents could pull off. The sort of everyday wizardry that took a slice of cheap meat and turned it into something that tasted like it belonged on a downtown diner plate. You would hear that skillet pop and hiss before you ever smelled it, and somehow that alone felt like a promise. Thick-cut bologna would curl as it hit the heat, browning until it took on that deep, savory flavor that made you forget it came from the bargain bin at the grocery store. Grandparents had this uncanny way of making simple food feel big and comforting, as if they knew exactly how to turn thrift into warmth. They would press it down with a spatula like they were working a grill at a lunch counter, then drop it onto warm bread slicked with mustard or mayonnaise. Sometimes they added a slice of cheese that melted just enough to glue everything together, and that tiny detail made the sandwich feel like a special order. Maybe it was the sizzling sound. Maybe it was the smoky smell. Or maybe it was the way grandparents cooked everything as if it were meant to matter. That sandwich was cheap and unassuming, yet the moment you bit into it, you knew it had found a permanent spot in your personal Hall of Fame. Molasses butter biscuit was a sweet morning treat that sustained generations of children heading off to school or fieldwork. A fresh biscuit, still warm from the wood stove, would be split open and spread generously with butter that melted instantly into the crumb. Then came the molasses. That dark, thick syrup drizzled over the butter until it pooled in the biscuit's crevices. The combination created something between breakfast and dessert, the butter's richness cutting the molasses' intense sweetness. During hard times when sugar was expensive, molasses served as the sweetener of choice for rural families across the South. Children wrapped these sandwiches in cloth napkins, carrying them to one-room schoolhouses where they provided energy through long morning lessons. The taste was bold and distinctive, nothing like the mild sweetness of modern pastries. This sandwich represented care and creativity, proving that even the simplest ingredients could make mornings feel special. You have not seen experimental until you have seen a tuna and apple sandwich. Exactly what it sounds like and worse in reality than in your imagination, a tuna salad mixed with chopped apple slices on white bread. Yes, that is literally the entire concept. And no matter what the fusion food crowd tries to say, we are not trying it or buying into the hype. If only to satisfy the curiosity inside us and scratch that must-try-everything itch, would we want this back. But strangely, people in the 70s had the opposite opinion. Cans of Pink Lady tuna and farmers market apples were apparently their idea of a good meal back then. Do you think they were onto something? Maybe we are jumping the gun and should take a note out of their book about being open to new tastes. A Bologna salad sandwich created with Bologna mixed with pickles, onions, and mayonnaise certainly sounds like a good combo. There is some grim history attached to the sandwich, though, as it may have been used as rations for military rations in World War II during times of meat shortages. The sandwich's recipe went through a lot of changes across the decades, but traditionally there would be diced bologna, mayo, celery, and some onions. These ingredients were cost-effective and could be rationed out easily, hence the Bologna salad sandwich was a regular lunch option for many people at the time. Tomato and mayonnaise sandwiches were the kind of simple perfection that could only come from grandparents who understood the power of fresh ingredients and soft white bread. A late summer tomato sliced thick and dripping with juice could transform the most ordinary day into something memorable. Grandparents knew how to pick them, pressing gently to feel for that perfect softness that meant the tomato had lived its best life. Then came the mayonnaise, spread edge to edge with a focus that would make a professional chef blush. The first bite was always messy in the best way, juices mixing with mayonnaise until it tasted like something from a restaurant that bragged about farm fresh produce. It was cheap, but never felt cheap. These sandwiches were like a quiet family secret, something learned only by standing in a warm kitchen while a grandparent sliced tomatoes with the same knife they had used for years. Eating it felt like eating a season, tied to gardens, porch swings, and long afternoons. Joy made from bread, tomato, and mayonnaise. Grandparents never explained it. They just handed it to you, knowing it was unforgettable. Sawmill gravy biscuit was the quintessential Southern breakfast. Thick white gravy ladled over a split buttermilk biscuit that could be eaten with hands or fork. The gravy started with meat drippings, usually from sausage or bacon, mixed with flour to create a roux that thickened as milk was slowly added. Black pepper provided heat and visual interest, the dark specks scattered through the creamy white sauce. Split biscuits were arranged on plates as the gravy was spooned generously over top, the bread absorbing the rich sauce while maintaining enough structure to be picked up and eaten. This wasn't a sandwich in the traditional sense, but rather an open-faced creation that satisfied hunger like nothing else could. Sawmill workers and loggers depended on this hearty breakfast to fuel brutal physical labor. The gravy stretched a small amount of meat into a meal that fed entire families, proving that ingenuity and skill could multiply resources. Bologna and cheese sandwiches were sandwiches that you could pull out of the refrigerator and have nobody raising any eyebrows, only happy smiles and eager stomachs. Bologna spreads were not too popular in America until the 70s when they first properly started picking up some steam. People got on the bandwagon once bologna and pepperoni pizzas started becoming regular takeout options in states like New York and Chicago. If it works on a pizza by the laws of nature, it must be tried on a sandwich or burger too. We are not sure who came up with that rule of thumb, but they were really onto something, because this made for a great sandwich that was a meal people ate when all there was for dinner was sleep. While a lot of those cheeses and spreads got discontinued now, we would love to try an authentic sandwich from the 70s because it sounds right up our alley. As grim as the name might sound, peanut butter combined with mayo was quite a hit back in the day. In America, kids would often have this at 7 a.m. before school as breakfast they could easily put together. The sandwich was especially popular in the 30s to 60s as it was cheap and filling. Much like other sandwiches in the list, the peanut butter and mayo combination was also a product of the Great Depression. The mayo provided generous proteins that would pair well with fats from the peanut butter. In a time of financial instability, people found this sandwich to be a great way to ensure intake of important nutrients. As financial situations improved in America, this sandwich was replaced by newer and rather better-tasting options. Potted meat sandwiches were born from pantry shelves that never had much but always had enough. That small can of potted meat, easy to overlook today, was once a dependable meal when money had to stretch farther than anyone wanted to admit. Grandparents mixed it with diced onions or pickles to give it flavor that felt almost gourmet. Spread thick on soft bread, it became the kind of sandwich you relied on when time or money were running low. Potted meat had this salty, savory richness that tasted like a diner sandwich when seasoned just right. Grandparents knew how to make a can feel like a full meal, how to make you feel like nothing was missing, even if life was difficult. Eating it felt like stepping back into a kitchen built on hope and habit. They opened the can, mixed it by instinct, and served it without fuss. That simplicity was part of its charm. Potted meat sandwiches were built on resilience, care, and the belief that flavor does not depend on wealth. Fried mush sandwich turned yesterday's cornmeal porridge into this morning's crispy breakfast in the time it took to heat a skillet. Leftover cornmeal mush was poured into loaf pans the night before, where it would set firm as it cooled. Come morning, thick slices were cut from the solidified mush and fried in lard or bacon grease until both sides developed a golden crust that crackled when bitten. These crispy slices were placed between bread or simply eaten with syrup poured over top. The texture contrast was remarkable, the exterior shattering to reveal a creamy, corn-sweet interior that brought comfort and sustenance. This sandwich stretched resources brilliantly, turning one pot of mush into multiple meals across 2 days. Farm families across the Midwest and South relied on this transformation, knowing that nothing cooked should ever go to waste. Children especially loved the sweet corn flavor combined with the satisfying crunch, making it a breakfast worth waking early for. Pickles come in pairs with olives, so it is only right to mention cream cheese and olive sandwiches next. Cream cheese was an ingredient that was already a staple in many American homes because of its popularity in desserts around the 1970s. Olives are, well, olives, and if you do not have a bottle always ready to go, you need to reevaluate your grocery shopping list for this month. Mixing the two made both substantially better, like those power-ups Iron Man gets whenever he puts on a bulkier suit. If people felt really fancy, they would put the olives on the stove for a while and have them fried. Not only was it great on its own, but people also did not stop at just frying. Both of them made for really awesome toppings on meat-based sandwiches. We would not mind seeing more olives on our plate today for sure. They are a classic we feel work in any era. The Scrapple sandwich is exactly what the name suggests. Fried slices of scrapple on bread. Traditionally, this sandwich would be sliced and prepared in a skillet, under a thick layer of eggs. It definitely became popular around the Maryland to New York district, but the recipe itself is properly ancient. An 1853 extract from a cookbook advises using pork that wouldn't be suitable for sausage. It was also popular for its health benefits. It can be made in a variety of ways, and some people include crispy cabbage on top and make it into a waffle with mayo. Mix and match and see what works best for you. Maybe you'll find something worth sharing. But for now, the Scrapple sandwich can only be something you create. With its popularity last seen in the mid-1850s, this sandwich is something that we can only find in old extracts now. Leftover roast vegetable sandwiches were the kind of meal grandparents made when they refused to let anything go to waste. After dinner, they would gather whatever vegetables were left in the pan, fry them up in a little oil or leftover drippings, and stack them high between slices of bread. Carrots, potatoes, onions, squash, and anything else that happened to be sitting in the bowl all came together into something far better than you expected. The heat revived them, bringing back the flavors that had dulled after sitting out, and the bread turned it into a portable, handheld feast. It tasted warm, smoky, and rich. like something you would order from a corner cafe that prided itself on rustic charm. Grandparents knew how to stretch leftovers into entirely new meals, and this sandwich was one of their greatest hits. It was cheap, filling, and comforting, giving you a whole second dinner out of what everyone else would have thrown away. Eating it reminded you that grandparents never needed a recipe to impress you. They just needed a skillet, a little oil, and the sense to know that food could always be made new again. These sandwiches were thick, messy, and unforgettable, carrying with them the memory of kitchens where nothing was ever wasted and everything was always used with care. Fried apple biscuit brought orchard sweetness to the breakfast table, combining quickly cooked apples with fresh biscuits for a meal that felt almost like dessert. Apples were sliced thin and fried in butter with a sprinkle of sugar and cinnamon until they softened and their edges began to caramelize. The warm fruit was spooned onto split biscuits, the juices soaking into the bread while the apple slices provided tender sweetness. During apple season, this sandwich appeared regularly on farm tables, using fruit that might otherwise go to waste before it could be properly preserved. The preparation took barely 5 minutes, yet created something that children and adults alike looked forward to. Some families added a drizzle of cream or a pat of butter for extra richness. The combination of warm spiced fruit and tender biscuit represented the best of country cooking, where seasonal abundance met morning hunger. Ever heard of a peanut butter and pickle sandwich? While both pickles and peanut butter are popular choices for bread-based goodness nowadays, there was once a time when people mixed the pickles into the peanut butter to make a sandwich. Around the 1970s, the peanut butter and pickle sandwiches really started taking off, particularly dill pickles. Something about the spice and tang of a pickle added a lot of character to a basic peanut butter sandwich. It helped that a sandwich loaded with vegetables was always more filling. On a budget or on an energetically challenged day where you cannot get yourself out of bed, this sandwich worked wonders for the masses. We definitely want this one back in lunchboxes and fridges in many states like the good old days. The creamed corn sandwich was easy and quick to make. With just some creamed corn on buttered bread, you had a good lunch ready. Now, this used to be a lunch many people would pick for their long work days, but recently it has taken a nosedive in popularity. Of course, the vegan crowd still loves it as an alternative, but only a surprisingly 0.66% restaurants offer creamed corn sandwiches on their menus. Still, let's say you're trying to watch what you eat. Any better option than a creamy corn sandwich? Maybe, but you'd be hard-pressed to find one this easy to make. All you need is spices of your choice, some veggies like tomatoes and onions, or iceberg lettuce or slightly toasted cabbage, a good spreading of creamed corn, flat loaf bread, and you'll have this delicious sandwich that has now faded into the past. A sandwich that many do not even know exists. Egg and onion sandwiches were proof that you did not need much to make something stick with you, and grandparents understood that better than anyone. They would boil eggs the way only older hands know how, never cracking and always perfectly tender. Then came the onions, diced sharp and small enough to blend into the mix, but bold enough to give the sandwich its signature kick. Add a spoonful of mayonnaise or a tiny splash of vinegar, and suddenly you had the kind of filling that could feed a whole table without anyone feeling shortchanged. Grandparents scooped the mixture onto soft bread with a seriousness that made you think you were eating something far fancier. The sandwich had the creaminess of a corner deli order and the bite of something crafted by someone who knew how to stretch every ingredient. Maybe it was the onion that made it feel grown up, or the eggs that made it feel comforting, or the way grandparents piled it on thick. Whatever the reason, it tasted far bigger than its small cost. Egg and onion sandwiches were quiet generosity served between two slices of bread. Lard and sugar bread was perhaps the simplest forgotten breakfast, nothing more than homemade bread spread with fresh lard and sprinkled with white sugar. The lard provided richness and fat that stuck to ribs during long mornings of work. The sugar added sweetness that made the combination feel almost indulgent. Children especially loved this sandwich, the sugar crystals crunching slightly against the smooth lard and soft bread. Making it took barely a minute, perfect for busy mornings when the wood stove was needed for other cooking. During the Depression and war years, this sandwich fed countless families when other breakfast options weren't available or affordable. The taste seems strange to modern palates accustomed to butter, but for generations raised on lard, this sandwich represented comfort and normalcy. It was food that didn't pretend to be fancy, yet delivered exactly what a body needed to start the day. You have not seen experimental until you have seen a tuna and apple sandwich. Exactly what it sounds like and worse in reality than in your imagination, a tuna salad mixed with chopped apple slices on white bread. Yes, that is literally the entire concept. And no matter what the fusion food crowd tries to say, we are not trying it or buying into the hype. If only to satisfy the curiosity inside us and scratch that must-try-everything itch would we want this back. But strangely, people in the 70s had the opposite opinion. Cans of Pink Lady tuna and farmers market apples were apparently their idea of a good meal back then. Do you think they were onto something? Maybe we are jumping the gun and should take a note out of their book about being open to new tastes. A rather repulsive combo for some and appealing taste for others. The anchovy paste sandwich is a savory spread made from anchovy paste. This is less of a sandwich and more of a versatile condiment, but it does work extremely well on sandwiches, especially because the bread balances out the anchovy's taste. Historically, anchovy paste has always been used to give flavor and some pros to your health, but in the USA, it picked steam as a spread for sandwiches. You can spice this up with fried eggplants, tomatoes, chopped chicken chunks, a salad dressing, or anything you can imagine. This is one of those sandwiches where every time you try it, you can experiment. Fried potatoes on bread were the kind of sandwich that made you feel like you had stumbled into a diner, even when you were sitting at your grandparents' kitchen table. Potatoes were one of the most reliable foods around, cheap, filling, and always ready to become something comforting. Grandparents would slice them thin or cube them small, fry them in a pan until they were crisp on the outside and soft on the inside, and then pile them between slices of warm bread. Sometimes they added a little salt, sometimes a little pepper, and sometimes whatever leftover fat they had in the pan to give it that extra restaurant flair. It was simple, but it ate like a full meal. The sandwich was heavy in the best way, warm, golden, and satisfying from the first bite to the last. You could hear the potatoes sizzling long before you sat down, and that sound alone told you that something good was coming your way. This was the kind of food that filled your stomach and your memory at the same time. It tasted like early mornings, like long afternoons, like comfort without cost. Grandparents understood that potatoes could be transformed into a dozen different meals, but this one always felt special. It had that diner-style nostalgia, that roadside cafe charm, even though it was made with nothing but potatoes, bread, and a little bit of time. Fried potato sandwiches were cheap, sure, but they carried a kind of richness you could not put a price on. Which vintage sandwich takes you back to simpler times? Share your memories in the comments. Hit like and subscribe for more forgotten recipes.